Tell me about a time when you had to go several layers deep to solve a hard problem. Welcome back to Interview At, and today we're going to be breaking down this dives deep question and talk about how well a software engineering manager candidate was able to perform on this question in one of our interviews. My name is Brandon Watson, and I'm an ex-executive from Amazon, Microsoft, Wall Street, a bunch of startups, etc. I've done some things. And here with Interview At, I basically try to teach you how to leverage the Amazon leadership principles to vastly improve your performance in job interviews. And the job interviews that use behavioral interview questions like this one, tell me about a time when, etc. And this is true no matter the company, no matter the role, no matter the level. The clips that I post here are from whole mock interviews, which are personalized to the candidate and the role, but they generally focus on the whole interviews, focus on one of six leadership principles. They focus on six leadership principles, and in this mock segment, I pick one of them. So this video covers one of those six segments, and in the interview, you'll see the entirety of the candidate's answer, as well as me jumping in from time to time, as well as the follow-up questions. And I will jump in with my feedback and insights from what I thought as the interviewer, what I think as a software executive who's been doing this for 20 plus years, and to give you a better sense of how you can better prepare and give you a sense of what you can do more of, what you can do less of, what you should start doing, and what you should stop doing. And if you watch until the end, you'll hear the feedback that would have been read into the room for this candidate for a debrief had this been a real interview. So if you're liking this content, I definitely appreciate it. If you like and subscribe, it helps me a lot with YouTube, gets the content out there, and hopefully helps a bunch more candidates just like you. All right, so what is covered? Today, the candidate was targeting obviously a tech role as a software development manager. The leadership principle was delivers results, and the question I used was tell me about a time when you went several layers deep to solve a problem. And the love note I got from this candidate, and I try to read these verbatim, snippets verbatim. Thanks for the detailed feedback and debrief. It was great to see what kind of assessment happens for SDM L6. This person was obviously targeting Amazon. It really shows that I need more preparation. And that's great feedback. The reason we do these mock interviews is because, well, quite frankly, they're free and they help you out. If you want to sign up for your own mock interview, go to interviewat.com. I do these for free because, well, I had a lot of help coming up through the ranks, and this is one of the ways I choose to give back. And so with that out of the way, let's just jump right in. As always, I do these with no cuts, no do-overs. I hit play, play back the video, and we enjoy it together. And, especially as a software engineer, right? Sometimes it's very difficult when you're trying to solve a problem and what appears to be the solution on the surface is not the right one, right? It's not even close. It's sort of close, but not quite. And so oftentimes you have to go multiple levels down to actually get to the right answer. And so what I'd love for you to talk me through is a problem that you had with your team where you had to go down several layers to figure out the solve. And let's just talk about what it was, and I'll have some follow-up questions. Now, straight away, this should be pretty clear that this is a dives deep question. I mean, the giveaway is the several layers deep, right? But bear in mind, what this answer or question is really trying to get at is how well can you solve complex problems, and how complex are those problems? There are some times where you have simple problems that, sometimes you got to go several layers deep to solve. That's an okay answer, but a better answer here is going to be one that was very complex and had a lot of scope. If you have that in your history, definitely err on the side of a much more complex, non-intuitive, non-obvious solve that caused, to get to the answer, you had to ask a bunch of questions to get to the right answer. It wasn't like, oh, well, we did this, this, and this, which was procedural. We would have done this anyway, and we got to the right answer. It was like, well, we asked this, which then was going to tell us one of six things, but it told us this, so we asked this question, and that told us one of four things, so we asked this question, and you can work your way through the process, because here, process is going to matter as much as your ability to dive way into the weeds and get to the right answer.
Okay. So, when I was working with my previous organization, there was so I was managing a data analysis and reporting project. The project was basically migrating all these SQL-based reporting and analytics onto the big data ecosystem. Now, during in the midst of various deliveries, my team came to me asking for a approval, and that approval was basically having more resources. When I say more resources, it's basically computational and storage resources onto the big data cluster. So Before approving it, I just wanted to verify the findings of my team, and I just wanted to understand why my team actually came to this conclusion that they will require more resources and more storage. So I had set up a call with my team. I started having conversation on what's happening, why this kind of resources are required, and I started asking more technical questions. Basically, I the first question I asked was, why you need it, why you need a computational resource, and the answer I got is, the batch reporting which we were generating taking 36 hours, which was a daily batch reporting, which was taking 36 hours. So it doesn't make any sense for business
It's hard to run a
to
business that
have,
way.
yeah. So
So just to jump in really quick, Ken's been speaking for a couple minutes at this point, and it's still not clear what the problem was. I mean, the problem as presented was his team came to him asking for more resources, and that's fine. But that's not really a problem, that's a request. And so this is one of the things you have to be careful of when you're asked a question to talk about a problem that required solving. Be clear up front what the problem was, not how it originated, not how you discovered it. What was the actual problem? That hasn't yet been established.
yeah, so I said why it's taking 36 hours. My question was why it's taking 36 hours, and then I realized that there are around 50 output Hive views. Hive is basically the kind of technology we use, and these views were getting created from around 70 to 80 staging views. And then I asked why we are having this staging views, why not tables, why not we store the data. And one of the member from team realized that yes, there is a possibility of doing that. And then I asked questions that are all the data are changing day in day out. Do we have any data which is not changing for weeks, for 10 days, 15 days? We can actually store them, create a table, and using those tables we can create the views. It will actually improve our performance because it will work as cache. And team realizes that yeah, this could be one of the approach. So I quickly asked my team that before I do.
So again, jumping in, we're now 2 more minutes into the answer, a minute and a half. But ask yourself, just being able to look at this with an objective eye, has this candidate walked you through or presented it with clarity how they solved the problem and what the levels of the solve were? They started with a why question at the front, which is good. Why do you need this? It's an obvious first question. But it sounds like he's solving the problem fine, but not really clear about how he got there and what the layers were he had to jump through to get there. So that's missing up to this point. And the longer this answer stretches out, the more the interviewer's mind is going to wander trying to piece together, well, what's really going on here? What did I miss? Did I miss something early on? It's trending away from a great answer because it hasn't quite lived up to the promise of the question yet.
Do any other approvals, you just go ahead, do a pilot, convert all these views which are basically possible to change, possible to store it into the storage. You just do a pilot storing those high views. And I said one thing, that storage is 10 cents per GB, whereas memory is $8 per GB. So I asked my team to be mindful about this, and I also asked my team to be disciplined.
Just a quick jump in. This is a minor thing, but important. The candidate is actually using metrics, as it were, in this case, the cost of storage, various types, to highlight a potential solve path. It's data-based, it's rational, it's reasonable, etc. But it shows good attention to detail, however small that detail might be.
About spending money, and I said that when you spend money, think as if it's your money, right? It's not organization's money, even if it's a $400K or a $40. So be mindful about that.
Hold on, is that right? Hold on, storage is 10 cents a gigabyte. Is that right?
Yes.
So $10 for a terabyte. Is that? What am I doing the math wrong here? No. It's $100 for a terabyte. Yeah, I guess that's right. Yeah, okay, yeah, I guess that's right. I hadn't really thought of it in that way. That's a very unique way to think about it. It's been a while since I bought a computer and had to worry about that.
Yeah, so I said my team that be mindful about it, and once they did the pilot, we increased so our cycle time from 36 hours went down to 8 hours. There was still scope of improvement, which we took it as a continuous improvement later on. but it was moved from 36 hours to 8 hours. We were able to generate the reports before the business signs in, and that was through increasing the storage, because I asked my team to store the staging data instead of keeping it into the memory itself. So that's how I went deep into the asking questions. I basically followed a framework which is called 5 why framework. I am a true believer of that. I went deep into.
He didn't actually ask 5 why questions, though. So it's good that he used a framework. It's actually a great framework, and it's one that I often advise people use when trying to demonstrate competency around a topic versus they were just a passenger on a solve. But if you're going to claim that you used the 5 whys framework, or even loosely talk about it, try to present more than one of the whys in walking through your solve.
To various questions, and then realized that, and it was a realization to team as well, that this could have been the better approach.
So I'm curious, did you work through this all on your own, or did you consult with anybody outside of your team to kind of get to the right answer?
Now, this is really important, because up to this point in the questioning, or the candidate's answer, he's talking as if he basically did all the solving, and he was kind of telling his team what to do, not working with them to solve the problem or working with anybody else. It was kind of like, well, I asked some questions and I told them what to go do, and we solved the problem. This question, me as the interviewer, and it's something I do a lot in interviews, and good interviewers will do this, is they're trying to assess, what did you do? What did the team do? And what decisions did you actually make? That's what this question is really about. And it's something to look out for, because it's going to give you a sense of, well, how much attention is the interviewer paying to what you're saying? And are you flying at the right altitude for them? And are you giving them the content that they need?
Yeah, so my responsibility was to asking the question and getting the details of what is there. The suggestion came out from my side. The idea came out from my side of why not to store the data, which is you are actually which are not changing that frequently. Why not to store it? That idea was basically coming out from my side, but it came after asking so many questions. So my responsibility was to asking questions, getting the answers from the team, and then suggesting some path forward to the team.
He still hasn't told me the questions. Critically important. This question is about diving deep, and he hasn't shared what any of those questions are, so that's kind of falling short in that regard.
Okay. That's fine. And so, using the 5 whys is well known as a way to root cause and get to the right answer. But how do I want to ask this question? I think what I really want to understand is, asking why is obviously helpful, and it definitely gets to the right answer, no question about it. But I'm trying to understand your thought process. Did you have a determined path that you thought you were on, or did you genuinely come to the answer only after having asked why a bunch of times? Do you understand what I'm asking? I'm trying to figure out if you were being clever in how you guided your team through this, or if it was truly the 5 whys that got you to the answer, because as you were getting the answers, you're like, oh, I think I have a better solve. Does that make sense?
And this is basically me being much nicer about asking the question of, like, what did you actually do? Right? Because a root interviewer who's busy, they're frazzled, they've seen 20 candidates in the week. Much more root interviewer will be like, but what did you actually do? Right? And so I'm trying to give the candidate an out here to kind of walk through how they solve the problem. But that, again, the question, walk me through your process for a time when you had to go multiple layers deep to solve a problem. And he failed to do that in the answer up to now. Failed to deliver what he did. Sounds like he got a great answer, or a great solve, but it's not clear what he did versus what was programmatic, right? What was creative versus programmatic process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say definitely I trusted my team. I just wanted to verify, the details which team was providing. So it's not that when I went into the meeting room, I was having that idea in my mind. Somehow I was skeptical about why it's taking 34 hours. I was doubting, what could have been wrong here, because I was not believing that creating 50 plus batch reports taking 36 hours. So that approximation actually was there. but it was not that I was having some ideas in mind and then going into the meeting room. The idea came after digging down to the answers of the questions which I asked to my team.
Okay. And so what ultimately happened? I mean, it was 36 hours, a lot of time to shave. What happened with the reporting?
Yeah, so as I said, our cycle time reduced to 8 hours.
8 hours. That's it. I
And
missed that part. Yeah.
yeah, and that was because we use storage instead of computational memory.
Okay. As you went into the process with your team, I imagine they didn't just start coding and moving stuff around without obviously coming back together as a team. Did you have estimates as to what you thought the savings would be before they actually executed on the plan?
This is very much an attention to detail question, right? He presented the results, the outcome. The question now is, okay, cool that you got that outcome, but was it expected? What did you plan for? What math did you do, in this case, because they were looking for savings, what math did you do to give you a range of acceptable answers? How were you going to know that you were being successful?
There was a bit of approximation during the calculation. So when I suggested that idea, I actually was trying to figure out if we go ahead and let's say if we stage 14 to 15 hive views, what could have been the saving of time. That approximation was there in my mind. However, the actual result which we received was quite better than what my approximation was. So my approximation was probably I would be hitting 50%. It means I would be hitting somewhere around 12 to 13 hours, but it hit 8 hours. So yeah, that was the kind of approximation I was having in my mind, but I was not having a clear-cut saving in my mind, which can tell me that this many hours will be saved.
But how did he get to that number? Are you sensing a theme? How did you get to that number? How did you do the calculations? How did you predict success or failure? Super important that comes through, especially in a technical type behavioral interview question.
Okay.
I just wanted to try it. Because instead of just going ahead and buying resources, I thought let's try it and let's if at all in worst case we'll fail, but let's try it.
Sure. Makes sense. So I'm curious, the
Software development manager targeting an L6 role at Amazon dives deep was the leadership principle. Question, give me a time when you had to go several layers deep to solve a problem. Did the candidate succeed or fail in communicating that? I would say it was just okay. L6 is a handful of years experience. It's not a straight out of college role, but as a manager, you're expected to do more. So it wasn't quite up to the bar. And ultimately, the candidate presented a situation which appears to have had good impact. So that's good. And cost savings. That's good. For which he had numbers. Great. But the process to get there, it just wasn't clearly driven by something that the candidate specifically outlined as diving deep, right? It was more, he asked a few questions, he told his team what to go do, and they did it. And then the candidate elected to state that they used the 5 whys framework, but did not actually outline the 5, 4, 3 whys of the process of getting to an answer. He just had a 1 why question. So it's an appropriate tool for demonstrating diving deep, but it didn't really walk through the complicated decision-making and thought processes to get through the tree of possible outcomes to get to the answer. So that's a little bit problematic. And so when trying to demonstrate competency, and this is the feedback that would have been rendered in the room, when trying to demonstrate the competency as a development IC or a leader, the 5 whys, they didn't portray the candidate as having used their development experience or their knowledge to dive deep into a problem to be solved in a new or novel way, right? It just kind of felt very formulaic, and the answer was kind of already known beforehand, even though the answer wasn't. It was just kind of follow these steps, you get to the answer. So while the outcome presented was a good one, and the process was a good one, this example didn't do the best job of demonstrating the unique skill of the candidate for diving deep. And that's problematic. It's not going to help, you're not going to stand out with this kind of answer. So it's important to understand, and so that's the end of the feedback. It's important to understand that this candidate, it was just a very okay answer, I guess is the way to put it. It was a very okay answer, and especially if you're targeting a FANG-M company, right? I mean, the expectations are brutally high for software development manager roles at those companies, and this is not the best example. A better example would have been using this exact example. Better example or answer would have been, what were the 5 whys? Walk me through the math. How did you know this was important? How are you going to know you were failing? Like, answering those questions along the way would have made this a much meatier and better, with data and examples, would have made this a much meatier answer. Or choose a different story altogether. Story selection matters. And it matters because you want to position yourself in the best light and demonstrate a kind of scale matching. And, being ex-Amazon, this answer from a scale perspective of, potential outcomes doesn't really match to the expectations of an L6 SDE manager at Amazon in terms of what they're kind of expected to deal with on a day-to-day. And so didn't match the kind of stakes and the outcomes with the target role, and didn't do a great job of walking through the process to get to the answer. And therefore it ended up being just a very okay answer, probably more appropriate for an L5 software engineering manager. So that's it for Dives Deep this week, and we'll have more week to week. If you want your own mock interview, I still do them for free over at interviewout.com. Feel free to head over there and sign up. Schedule does pack up quite a bit as more and more people want these. And also, if there's specific leadership principles or types of questions that you would like to see, I've got over at this point, I guess, 80 hours of interview footage. And so I just try to put one of these up a week and let me know if there's a specific question you'd love to see. I probably have it, or a specific role. I probably already have it. And let's make it happen.